Good morning again, folks. We're going to do another very important paper here, which is a bit windy, but we'll persevere. It's called The False Prophet and the Antichrist, paper number 141D, underline 3A. Right, the scripture is quite clear that the demons will have the empire of the beast, paper 299A, turn on the whore and the harlot daughters and destroy those whole systems, explained in 299B and 141D underline 3. However, scripture is also very clear that the prophets of God active over the measuring of the temple, paper 137, and the warning of the last days, paper 44, and the Great Tribulation, 141D underline 2, will not be left unchallenged over the final phase of the Great Tribulation, especially when the Trinitarian system of the whore and her harlot daughters are destroyed, along with many of the systems of the late false Islamist structures that are also to be destroyed. So basically what we're saying here is the Trinitarian system which Satan established to deceive the whole world is going to be turned upon by the beast and the false prophet, who the false prophet is believed in Sardis Christianity to be the Pope of Catholicism, but no, it's the false prophet is a new religion which the beast is going to formulate to turn on the entire Trinitarian false Christian system and destroy it. And it's fascinating. So Wade, will hand it over to you now to explain about the Satan and beast system.
Well, we had dealt with the work in the sequence of the planned destruction of Christianity and the sack of the Vatican sequence, that basically God had set out the plan of salvation, the plan of his system over the 7,000 years, and that sequence went from the creation of Adam through the three phases.
Right, yep.
And that was the 40 Jubilees, or 2,000 years.
Yes, yep.
Up through Noah and the flood through to Abraham. And the second phase was the 2,000 years, 40 Jubilees from Abraham to Christ. And we saw that halfway through that sequence, David entered Jerusalem in 1005 BC, and Christ was born in the year 5 BC, probably at Tabernacles. Well, that is what we understand. And then the sequence went from Christ through to 1996, 7, and then the final 30 years of the last 40 Jubilees, or 2,000 years, was the mourning for Moses, when the laws of God are done away and these false systems are set up under the empire of the beast.
Right.
And Satan simply works with and uses those systems, and he will destroy the religious systems that he created under the sun and mystery cults and the Babylonian structure. And all of them will be destroyed systematically by Satan and the demons up through to the coming of the Christ.
And that includes Judah too, which they're also totally corrupted, aren't they?
Yes, they are corrupted completely by the Babylonian mystery and sun cults and the traditions, and by the Babylonian intercalations in their calendar, which does not follow the laws of God, which is a false calendar using the Babylonian intercalations established from a fictitious start date 5,700 odd years ago.
Right.
Now, that system will be wiped out also, and the churches of God keeping Hillel will be put to death and they will not go into the Papal system. And they don't seem to understand that. Yes, we'll go on through now to how Satan then used the church. Now, in the structure, Satan, we said, under the sack of the Vatican, how Satan had penetrated the church, and he established this church from Rome. The Trinitarian system was established by 451 at the Council of Chalcedon,
right.
And then they killed everybody that disagreed with them, wherever and whenever they could get away with it.
And that happened very early. The establishment of the antinomian system happened from the Apostles' period, from Simon Magus.
Yes.
Didn't he, when he went to Rome?
Yes, he went to Rome and they established, worshipped him as a god, and
That's right,
that was the Peter that they refer to
was
in
the
Rome.
first pope, right,
Yes,
right,
yes.
yep.
Peter, the Apostle Peter, was established in the Middle East, and he established himself from Antioch and Babylon, that is, from the area in the Middle East in Iraq, which was the original area of Babylon, and he says that he was there in the Bible. So what's happening is to get him to Rome, they have to say that he was really saying the area that he was at in Babylon was really the actual Rome, which was the real Babylon of the last days. All nonsense.
Yeah.
But what they did was then they established the church and the Inquisitions. Through from the 8th century, they started killing people systematically following the Unitarian Trinitarian wars.
Right.
And then they developed through in the last millennial phase of the system, from the 10th century onwards, they systematically passed resolutions and regulations and canons of the councils to force the systematic execution of the churches of God.
Right, and anyone that adhered to the original doctrines of the founding fathers.
Yes,
right.
Yes. If you kept the laws of God, that was the objection they had.
Right.
So you couldn't keep the laws of God, you had to do what they said.
Right.
And they drove us underground and killed us systematically all around the world from their establishment of the feudal system under the Normans and the French, the Franks, Charlemagne and whatever, on through their systems, through the millennium, the last millennium, and we're now at this final phase through to 2027, which ends their period. And over the next 4 years, it will transition to the beast power. Now, we saw the transition from the beast power occur over the 20th century,
Yep.
and we went through the Bretton Woods Agreement,
Right.
through to the establishment of this New World Order.
Right.
And these politicians are talking about the New World Order now, and they are going to establish this, and the transition will be to the power of the beast, which are the 10 toes of iron and miry clay
it's been
in the last days.
Set up and established for quite a long time in the insidious European government out of Brussels.
Yes, it's from 1997 they were effectively running the world.
Right.
You think that you have national sovereignty, and you do not.
No.
And the people, these parliamentarians, are now establishing laws to do away with the Trinitarian system. And they've just passed a law in Queensland of Australia, the state of Australia, where it's now unlawful to proselytise or preach or teach Christianity. Now that's a very serious problem. Both sides of the house, both political parties were involved.
Right.
And that transition of power will become so great that the Trinitarian religious system will be exterminated over the next 42 months from the nuclear exchanges about to occur. There will be the power of the beast for 42 months, and then Messiah will come.
Which the Queensland government will adopt easily, because they're already stopping us from saying anything.
Well, that will continue now around the world, and these people will try and stop all Christianity, and the people themselves will turn on this religious war, and it will be destroyed. Scripture cannot be broken.
No.
And we will watch and deal with the period, and we'll deal further with the system under the 1260 days of the witnesses. That 1260 days of the witnesses will explain the conflict between the religious whore, the beast, and the two prophets of God standing on the Temple Mount. We will deal with that.
And we have some scriptures here which are becoming so clear now that it's on top of us. We've got 1 John 2:18, children, it is the last hour, and as you have heard that Antichrist is coming, so now many Antichrists have come, therefore we know that it is the last hour. And they're coming out of the woodwork on social media and YouTube, and as it more advances and they can't ignore the fact that it's all upon us with what's happening, more of them are coming out and saying outrageous things.
Yes, the purpose, the doctrine of Antichrist is that which is a perversion of 1 John. And what they did was try and separate the divinity from the humanity of Christ.
Right.
That is the doctrine.
Yeah.
What they tried to do was suggest that Christ didn't die fully. His humanity died, but his divinity was still operational actively, and heretics like Armstrong tried to suggest that he went to Tartaros while his body was lying in the tomb in Jerusalem.
Right.
Now, that just shows you what an idiot Armstrong was,
Yes.
and how unconverted he and his ministry were and are. Now, what these people, that is the doctrine of Antichrist, and what will happen is that in this last days we've gone through the Antichrists, and they were identified with the Roman Catholic Church. Now, we've given you chapter and verse in this paper about who they were and what the structure was. You had, like, John 23rd, the original John 23rd, Baldassare Cossa, was, he had 200 nuns as concubines, and he was also a sodomite, and he considered that was perfectly normal and that all was okay. And there are lots of these antichrists sitting in the Vatican, in the papacy.
Right.
And they were identified by all of the fair dinkum true church spiritualists.
Who could tell by their fruits what they were doing and what they weren't doing.
Look at their fruits, yes.
Right,
and the Vatican had to be destroyed.
Right.
And it will be destroyed in the very near future. And we are on this last sequence now of either this is the last pope or he is a non-canonically elected pope with which they will try and replace him. But I think this last pope will be put to death.
That's an interesting statement in the paper. The Roman Catholic Church prophets have been labelling the voice of Dan in Ephraim above as Antichrist from the 14th century onward.
Yes, that's an interesting. The Bible's quite clear that in the last days, a a voice from Dan Ephraim, which is the Revelation chapter 7 combination of Joseph in Revelation 7, that the church starts from there and moves from the south north and into the northern hemisphere, and from there it takes over the world. Now, that sequence was prophesied in Jeremiah 4:15 to 27.
Right.
Now, the demons operating as prophets in the Roman system decided that because this movement, this system is iconoclastic, teaches of the coming of the Messiah and the sins and elimination of the Trinitarian structure, is Antichrist. So they did that from the 14th century through the 1400s, and there were prophecies extant right up until the end of the 20th century. The last quarter of the 20th century, they started pulling down these prophecies, removing them.
Right.
And they were quite sure that the last prophetic biblical movement of what is in fact the Church of Brotherly Love of the Philadelphian system of Revelation chapter 3 verses 7 to 13 is in fact they label Antichrist.
Right.
But they've taken them all the prophecies away. Now they decided that the leader of this group was shot in the head and seriously wounded but survived. Now, it just so happens that this last biblical church of God, formed in 1994, had a leader that was a soldier in his youth and was shot in the head, as they said.
Right.
So they knew in the 14th century, in the 15th century, that
who was going to lead the end time work.
Yes, the leader of the Philadelphian church was a soldier in his youth who was shot in the head.
Right.
And they knew that.
Yeah,
and he's an iconoclast.
Right.
And also the tribe of Dan. And it's the leader was a Danite extraction in Britain, and British lineage. And they said that this Antichrist would come out of an Israelite country to the east of Jerusalem between two seas. Now, Australia hadn't even been discovered then when they wrote these prophecies.
Yep.
But that's where it came from, and it came from there in accordance with Ezekiel. We'll deal with that in Fire from Heaven.
Right, yeah, that's explicit in detail.
God said exactly where it will come from and what would happen through the prophet Ezekiel 2,700 years ago.
Right, and of course the people up the north have just been reading over it, not understanding its intent.
No, well, you said it didn't fit with their plans because it wasn't North America, was it?
No, exactly, yeah.
So that's why they said what they were saying. But Ezekiel is quite clear on what happens, where it happens, and where it goes. So we're dealing with all of that, and we're fulfilling what the biblical structure says, because it has to come from the south, according to Ezekiel. It has to come from Dan Ephraim, according to Jeremiah in chapter 4, verses 15 to 27. And the structure moves to the north and then takes over the world.
Right.
That's why they have to label it as Antichrist, because their system is wiped out.
Right.
Now, in the final phase, the beast power takes over and establishes a system which replaces this Trinitarian church and tries to accommodate Islam, Hinduism, Confucianism, and tie it all together.
Right.
This is the final Antichrist and the final false prophet. And that final false prophetic system will be destroyed by Christ in the 43rd month when he comes. The witnesses are killed, and then Christ comes, and then the whole of the world system is brought down to Megiddo, and Christ kills the lot.
Destroys the lot, yep.
All the armies, all the systems, and then they will then still, after Armageddon and the vials of the wrath of God, they will send all of the forces against Christ still again around the world, and they will try and eliminate the churches of God and the Christ on a continual basis. This is very serious war, very serious conflict, and it sees the most of the world dead by the end of it. And this false prophet and this Antichrist and this whole structure will be eliminated, and the biblical structure of the law and the testimony will be implemented with the temple calendar, and everyone will do what they are told or they will die.
Right. So please, folks, get the paper. The False Prophet and the Antichrist. Paper 141D, underlined 3A.
And next we will deal with the fall of Babylon, which will further explain just how this whole system will be destroyed.
Thank you.